He is the ultimate warrior, the swift-footed godlike hero whose name echoes through millennia. Achilles, central figure of Homer's Iliad, the greatest fighter of the Trojan War. A man born of goddess and mortal, destined for greatness, yet cursed by fate. His story is one of breathtaking prowess, unyielding pride, devastating wrath, profound love, and inescapable tragedy. It explores the very essence of heroism, the allure of eternal glory, and the terrible price it demands. For centuries, his legend has captivated us, the story of a life lived intensely on the battlefield, forever shadowed by the promise of an early death. This is the story of Achilles. Achilles' legend begins not with mortals, but with the gods themselves. His mother was Thetis, a luminous sea nymph, a nereid desired by both Zeus, king of the gods, and his brother Poseidon. But prophecy intervened. Preloge me to do Slovenchini. It was foretold that Thetis would bear a son, destined to surpass his father in greatness. Fearing a potential rival, Zeus orchestrated her marriage to a mortal, Peleus, the noble king of Phthia and a hero in his own right, an Argonaut who had sailed in search of the Golden Fleece. Their union, celebrated by the gods, bridged the divine and mortal realms, setting the stage for an extraordinary offspring. From this union, Achilles was born. But Thetis, keenly aware of her son's mortal half, yearned to protect him, to grant him immortality. Two powerful traditions tell of her attempts. The most famous speaks of the river Styx, whose waters, flowing through the underworld, conferred invulnerability. Thetis dipped her infant son into the mystical river, but holding him by one heel, that single spot remained untouched, forever vulnerable. Another tale recounts Thetis anointing the baby with ambrosia, the food of the gods, and tempering him in sacred fire to burn away his mortality. But Peleus, witnessing the terrifying ritual, cried out, interrupting the process. Enraged, Thetis abandoned father and son, leaving Achilles powerful, yet incomplete, his immortality flawed, his heel perhaps, or some other part, left vulnerable. These myths, whether of water or fire, speak to a mother's desperate love and foreshadow the hero's ultimate fate. Following Thetis's departure, Peleus entrusted the young Achilles to a unique guardian, Chiron, the wise and noble centaur, teacher of heroes. On Mount Pelion, far from the world of men, Chiron sculpted the boy into more than just a warrior. Chiron fed him on the marrow of bears and the entrails of lions, fueling his strength and ferocity. But he also taught Achilles the arts of hunting and warfare, alongside music, medicine, and rhetoric. Chiron nurtured not just a fighter, but a complete man, embodying the Greek ideal of excellence in both body and mind. It was Chiron, some say, who renamed the boy, originally called Ligeron, giving him the name Achilles. As Achilles grew, his divine mother revealed the prophecy that defined his existence. Two paths lay before him: a long, peaceful life, lived in obscurity, forgotten by time, or a short, brutal life, filled with the glories of war, rewarded with fame, eternal, kleos. For a hero in the making, the choice was clear. Achilles embraced the path of glory, accepting the promise of everlasting renown, even knowing it meant an early grave. This pursuit of kleos, undying fame achieved through great deeds, was the driving force of the Greek heroic age. But a mother's love resists even fate. As whispers of war against Troy grew louder, Thetis, desperate to protect her son from his prophesied death, devised a plan. She spirited Achilles away to the island of Skyros, hiding him in the court of King Lycomedes. There, the greatest warrior of his generation lived in disguise, dressed as a girl named Pyrrha, the red-haired maiden among the king's daughters. During this hidden year, Achilles fathered a son, Neoptolemus, with Lycomedes' daughter Deidamia. Yet the warrior's spirit chafed beneath the silks and skirts. Destiny, however, would not be denied. A prophecy declared Troy could not fall without Achilles. The cunning Odysseus, dispatched by the Greek kings, arrived on Skyros. He employed a clever ruse, perhaps laying out fine fabrics and jewels alongside gleaming weapons, or sounding a sudden trumpet call to arms. While the princesses admired the finery, Achilles instinctively reached for a sword, his warrior nature betrayed. Exposed, Achilles faced his fate once more. Persuaded by Odysseus of his crucial role, he agreed to join the expedition. Leaving behind Skyros, his son, and any illusion of a peaceful life, Achilles sailed for Troy, accompanied by his loyal Myrmidon warriors and his dearest companion, Patroclus. His path to glory and doom was set. Achilles arrived at Troy, commanding 50 ships and his formidable Myrmidons, warriors known for their fierce loyalty. He was the Greeks' most potent weapon. In the first 9 years of the war, long before the events immortalized in the Iliad, Achilles carved a path of destruction. He led raids against Trojan allies, sacking 12 cities by sea and 11 by land, including Lyrnessus, where he captured the woman Briseis, who became his prize. He wounded the hero Telephus, slew Cycnus, a supposedly invulnerable son of Poseidon, and perhaps even ambushed and killed the young Trojan prince Troilus, whose survival, it was said, would have saved Troy. His reputation became legendary, his presence on the battlefield terrifying. The Iliad opens in the 10th year of the war, not with battle, but with discord. A plague sent by Apollo devastates the Greek camp. The cause? Agamemnon, the Greek commander-in-chief, had dishonored Apollo's priest by refusing to return his captive daughter, Chryseis. Achilles publicly demanded Agamemnon yield to the god. Agamemnon reluctantly agreed, but nursing his wounded pride, he retaliated. He seized Achilles' own war prize, the captive Briseis. This was an unbearable insult. For a warrior like Achilles, honor, time, earned through deeds and acknowledged through prizes, was paramount. Deeply dishonored, Achilles erupted in furious anger, menace. Consumed by rage, he withdrew himself and his Myrmidons from the war. He refused to fight. Achilles' absence was catastrophic. Without their greatest champion, the Greeks suffered defeat after defeat. Hector, Troy's valiant prince, pushed them back to their ships, threatening to burn the entire fleet. Achilles prayed to his mother Thetis, who persuaded Zeus to favor the Trojans, deepening the Greeks' desperation, making them feel the weight of their commander's arrogance. Agamemnon, finally desperate, sent an embassy. Odysseus, the wise Phoenix, the mighty Ajax, offering enormous riches, the return of Briseis untouched, even marriage to his own daughter, if Achilles would only return. But Achilles remained resolute. His honor had been slighted, and no treasure could compensate. He famously declared he valued his life more than all the wealth of Troy, hinting he might just sail home. His pride outweighed the plight of his comrades. The wrath of Achilles held the fate of the Greek army in its grip. As the Trojans surged towards the Greek ships, flames licking at the hulls, despair gripped the Achaeans. Witnessing the carnage, Achilles' closest companion Patroclus could bear it no longer. Beloved friend, perhaps cousin, raised alongside Achilles, their bond was profound. Patroclus begged Achilles, if he would not fight himself, let him at least wear Achilles' divine armor and lead the Myrmidons. The mere sight of the famous armor might terrify the Trojans and rally the Greeks. Achilles, still nursing his grievance, reluctantly agreed, but he gave Patroclus a strict command. Drive the Trojans from the ships, but go no further. Do not pursue them to the walls of Troy. Wearing Achilles' armor, Patroclus was a whirlwind. The Greeks roared, thinking their champion had returned. The Trojans broke ranks, terrified. Patroclus fought with inspired fury, killing the Lycian hero Sarpedon, a son of Zeus himself. He drove the enemy from the ships, saving the fleet. But success bred recklessness. Drunk on victory, Patroclus forgot Achilles' warning. He pursued the fleeing Trojans all the way to the walls of Troy. There, fate intervened. The god Apollo, protector of Troy, struck Patroclus, dazing him and loosening the divine armor. Euphorbos wounded him, and then Hector, prince of Troy, drove a spear into his belly. As Patroclus fell, Hector stripped him of Achilles' glorious armor, claiming it as his prize. The news shattered Achilles. Antilochus brought word of Patroclus' death, plunging the hero into an abyss of grief unlike any he had known. He wailed, tore his hair, covered himself in dirt and ashes, inconsolable. His rage against Agamemnon vanished, replaced by a bottomless sorrow and a new terrifying fury directed solely at Hector. He vowed he would not bury Patroclus until he had killed Hector and brought his head back. His mother Thetis came to comfort him, weeping for the tragedy she knew was unfolding. She warned him again. His own death was fated to follow Hector's swiftly. But Achilles, consumed by grief and vengeance, was undeterred. "Let me die soon," he cried, "since I was not there to help my friend." The decision was made. Achilles would return to war. First, he needed armor. Thetis flew to Hephaestus, the smith god, who forged a new set of divine armor for Achilles, even more magnificent than the last. Its centerpiece was a legendary shield depicting the entire world, the heavens, the earth, the sea, scenes of human life in peace and war, a microcosm of existence forged in metal. Clad in celestial bronze, Achilles returned to the battlefield. His grief had transmuted into terrifying, inhuman rage. He became an unstoppable force, a whirlwind of death. He slaughtered Trojans indiscriminately, his eyes fixed only on finding Hector. So great was the carnage that the river Scamander, choked with corpses, rose in anger to drown him. Achilles fought the river itself, saved only by Hephaestus's fire. Finally, only Hector stood outside the walls. Despite the pleas of his parents, Priam and Hecuba, Hector's honor demanded he face his nemesis. Achilles, radiating divine terror, pursued him 3 times around the city walls. Athena, disguised as Hector's brother, tricked him into stopping. The duel was swift, inevitable. Achilles, knowing the weak points of his old armor, now worn by Hector, drove his spear through his neck. As Hector lay dying, he pleaded for his body to be returned for burial. Achilles, his heart hardened by grief, refused. "Dogs and birds will feast on you," he snarled. With his last breath, Hector prophesied Achilles' own death at the hands of Paris and Apollo. Blinded by vengeance, Achilles committed his most shocking act. He pierced Hector's ankles, lashed the body to his chariot, and dragged his fallen foe in the dust around the walls of Troy, a horrific spectacle for the grieving city. For 12 days, he defiled the corpse, dragging it around Patroclus's funeral pyre. This desecration violated sacred laws and angered the gods. Though they magically preserved Hector's body, Zeus finally intervened. He sent Thetis to command Achilles to relent. Then, guided by Hermes, old King Priam risked everything, entering the enemy camp alone to ransom his son's body. He knelt before Achilles, grasped his knees, and kissed the very hands that had slain his sons. "Remember your own father," Priam pleaded, "an old man like me, waiting for word of his son." Priam's words broke through Achilles' grief. Thinking of his own father, Peleus, Achilles wept with the old king. In a profound moment of shared humanity amidst the brutality, Achilles relented. He treated Priam with honor, returned Hector's body, and agreed to a truce for the funeral. Achilles, the destroyer, showed mercy, but his own fate, sealed by Hector's death, loomed ever closer. The Iliad ends with Hector's funeral before Achilles meets his own end, but his death was foretold by his mother, by the dying Hector, by the prophecy of his two fates. Later accounts fill in the details. As Hector predicted, it was Paris, Hector's less warlike brother, who delivered the fatal shot, aided by the vengeful god Apollo. In the popular tradition, the arrow, perhaps guided by Apollo himself, struck Achilles' only vulnerable spot, his heel. Other versions exist. Some show the arrow hitting his body. One tale claims he was ambushed in the temple of Apollo, perhaps lured there by love for the Trojan princess Polyxena, only to be betrayed. Whatever the exact circumstance, the greatest warrior fell, not in open combat, but through treachery or divine intervention. His death required heroes like the mighty Ajax and the cunning Odysseus working together just to retrieve his body from the battlefield. Achilles, son of a goddess, pupil of a centaur, bane of Troy, loyal friend, wrathful warrior, tragic hero. He chose glory over longevity, Kleos over a quiet life. His rage shaped the course of the Trojan War. His grief revealed the depths of his humanity, and his death cemented his immortal legend. A figure of dazzling strength and poignant vulnerability, his choices resonate across the ages. The story of Achilles is more than a myth. It is a timeless exploration of what it means to be human, to strive, to love, to rage, and ultimately to be remembered. His fame, the Kleos he prized above all, remains undying,